with that said, I want to introduce Mr. Ian Fletcher from IBM, who's got a really interesting topic he's going to cover with AI and called Project Debator. I'm really interested to listen and hear how AI is playing a part and how IBM are playing a role in developing these AI solutions. Thank you very much.
We are thin on the ground, so I'll try and make this as interactive as possible to make it interesting. But we've heard a lot about new technologies and where these are going. And this thing called AI, which really has a little bit of a scary element about it. Now, my role in IBM is that I work for the Institute for Business Value. So we do all of the future tech. We do all the thought leadership. And it's my job, actually, to run the Fourth Industrial Revolution program, so where we're going from a technology point of view and how that's going to impact on society. So I'm kind of quite lucky in IBM because I don't have a sales target, which is kind of quite nice. Asif, can I have the clicker? So, I'm just going to make AI real for you and just put it into perspective. So let me just, before we move on to that, I just want to put the third industrial revolution into context. So if you think about the third industrial revolution, it was about counting, programmable, and now the cognitive. So we are just cresting the end of the third industrial revolution, and we're going to enter a new world of exponential growth of data, AI, and immersive security. And it's going to be culturally through everything. It's not something we can ignore. We just have to embrace it and accept it, okay? Will it take jobs? Yes, of course it will. But actually a study that we've just completed actually said that globally we will be short of 128 million people resources to deal with this new technology, right, in data science and AI. So, the big question is this scary thing called artificial intelligence. It's not artificial intelligence alone. It's about augmentation. It's about man and machine, or woman and machine. It's about trying to help us to do what we need to do more successfully. If we don't do that, then we get all this scary sci-fi stuff coming out. So IBM Institute for Business Value is really all about where are we actually going with it and what are we going to do with it in this practical solution. We put around 9% of our total annual turnover and profit back into the Innovation Hub. So it's a phenomenal amount of money. And there's a reason why we've been around for over 100 years. You're probably familiar with our kind of sort of our marketing, really making sure that we're ahead of the game. You remember in '97, for instance, there was the, beating the chess champion. That was a kind of big thing in terms of Big Blue. Then there was Jeopardy in 2011. That was quite unique because our AI called Watson actually won Jeopardy. But we don't stop there, really. We're trying to find the next level. So this year, we announced something called Project Debator, which was completely unique and never been done before. And that was to get AI to debate with a human in real time and provide value. Now, those of you will know is that AI doesn't work without data. Most AI projects are failing miserably because companies do not know where their data is, what to do with it, how to monetize it, and they're basically using AI projects with synthetic data with bias, and it's failing. So we need to have data running through our culture, AI running through our culture of every single organization. So let me introduce you to Project Debator. Now what we did is in February this year, we had this guy called Naresh, who is the leading debater champion worldwide, and we put it up against Project Debator. Now what's really, really important about this? 15 minutes before they were both on stage, we did not load any data. We did not, preload Project Debator with all the stuff that it needed. All we did is we taught it how to debate using the normal AI tools. So 15 minutes before they went on the stage, we were given a subject. And this subject happened to be, should governments subsidize preschool? Okay? And so therefore, what Project Debator and Naresh had to do was to come up with an argument. Project Debator took the pro, the human took the con. And what was interesting about this is that Project Debater had to create its own speech. It had to go and digest all the information and bring it all together, and then it had to phrase a nice argument around opening. And then we had a rebuttal round, and then there was a result at the end of it. So, what I'm going to do is just going to show you a little video of what that looked like, so you can make it real. So if we think about it, right, so what happened is that the Project Debater had to do the corpus injection, and this was 10 billion lines of code and 400 million documents in the back end that we just taught it how to debate on, not the subject matter. So it had to go and find its information. It had to decide on the motion. What position was it going to take? It had to think about the argument that it was going to phrase and how it was going to phrase it. It's really disappointed you can't see that. Then really had to start to think about what is its narrative? How is it actually going to be to generate a persuasive argument? So it has to think on human levels in real time. And then once it's actually heard, Naresh, and again, my apologies, and I'll send this to everybody, is it had to have a rebuttal based on what he said. Now that was really, really fascinating because it used all of the technology that machine learning does. And if I have to sort of succinctly put that in, it's about listen, learn, understand, and reason. Okay? But what was the big nugget here? It was intuitive AI. It needed no preloaded data to have an argument. That's game-changing. So now we start to think about projects and how they actually work, and we don't have to have the data, so therefore we remove bias and we remove all sorts of different other complications. That's something that's never been done worldwide ever. And so what we've done is we've managed to create AI that is intuitive in real time, and it can debate in real time. Okay? There's also another element, so how does it really bring down to an application? How are we going to sort of monetize this thing? How can society benefit from it? So we've taken it a stage further, and Debater now can actually do speech by crowd. So that is to say, it can take information from a crowd and give an opinion one way or the other based on that information that those people are saying. So this is starting to digest, it's augmenting the information, it's starting to shape an opinion, and then you end up with something that's really an unbiased view of where it's going. Now, had we had this for Brexit, for those from the UK, where Project Debater would have taken the opinions and provided an unbiased view, we might have had a different outcome. All right? I hope this works, guys, now. So, what I want to do is we did an exercise with the government in Italy where we got texts and information from 2,500 people, and we asked the question, what's the pros and cons of autonomous vehicles? Hopefully this is going to work. The answer is yes, we gave Project Debater and the human only 15 minutes to prepare. So both had to go and, so obviously the human had to go and use his knowledge, he had to do some quick checking up and reading. No, it took 15 minutes because actually during that 15 minutes, it digested over 10 billion lines of code and looked at 400 million documents that were stored in the back end, just to formulate its argument. Should we do this or should we not do this? Yeah, it depends on what you put in the back end, right? But what we've done is we've taken actually academic reports, and so primarily the key thing is teaching it how to debate.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here for this historic event. And it certainly was a pleasure to listen to Project Debater in a competitive environment at the age of 3 or 4, when you're learning that that other child is potentially better than you, when you realize you aren't necessarily as talented as someone else. That huge psychological damage for many children may mean that preschool is actively harmful.
My opponent claimed that preschools are harmful. I believe my argument suggested that the benefits outweigh the potential disadvantages. Future crime. We should subsidize preschools. Thanks for your attention.
1, 2. So you get the message, right? So this is real-time debating, okay? So
they would help many people who can't drive, but they would avoid potential accidents related to distractions or violence on the road. The use of autonomous vehicles would lead to a sharp decrease in accidents caused by driver carelessness. Furthermore, traffic lights would be eliminated as vehicles would communicate systematically by organizing the passage of every single vehicle. Next, a few words about the elderly. Autonomous driving will help people with physical issues, elderly people, and those who drive for long hours. Self-driving cars are safer and will allow people to work online while in the car. Self-driving vehicles allow autonomous and individual transport also for elderly and disabled people. Let's move to autonomy. The probability that accidents will happen with autonomous cars will always be much less than the present one with human drivers. Automated driving is the result of thousands of possibilities. Autonomous or semi-autonomous driving is the future because machines and artificial intelligence, if processed correctly, have no margin of error. Finally, regarding the environment, self-driving car technology will make for a safer world. Self-driving car technology and the environment will coexist for a more green future. The development of self-driving vehicles will certainly be useful both for the safety of the entire society and for the organization of traffic, but also for the protection of the environment. These were the arguments from the crowd, supporting the idea that we should further explore the development of autonomous vehicles. Thank you for listening.
Opinions on whether self-driving cars should be good or bad, right? I won't run the second video in the interest of time. What it did is it took that 2,500, stripped out all the bias, took out all the things that weren't relevant, and then focused on 1,600. That was the 1,000, so 68% were in favor of self-driving cars, where 32% were not. So what we've got is an interesting point of view here, where governments are starting to look at this and say, how could I actually use this in terms of polling my citizens? Could I do something more interesting with it? And now it's starting to be involved. I'll just skip this. So where's it going? So you can use this for debating ministers. You could stick it in elections. You can put it in terms of the legal system, in terms of the sort of governance and provenance associated with it. Dubai, actually, interesting enough, we're looking at, should we invest in space travel? Right? So it's business case orientated. So we can start to use the project debater first element to start to debate our business case and should we invest or shouldn't we invest. So we're starting to see how we'll use AI to our benefit, i.e. the augmentation. And we're also going to see something quite profound, is that we will only accept AI in our everyday society if it's in a form that we feel comfortable with. It's like just you and I talking, and now we've got the body language and we understand and we get all that, and so therefore we've got an empathy straightforward. So we don't really like the chatbot bit, right? But we accept it's part of the evolution. So you see this Chinese gentleman. So he is the news anchor of the Chinese TV, right? You've probably seen this out on YouTube. But actually, he is an avatar of the CEO. So it's trust again. We've got Sophia. We've all probably heard of Sophia. And this AI race, this arms race, is going to become quite an issue when we start to think about how do we interact with machines and how do we feel comfortable. And are they augmenting our lives or are they threatening our lives? And then you've got this young lady down here. I normally run a video on this because it's kind of quite scary. But we can start to design AI in the form that we want to interact with. So we start to become comfortable. Now, according to the World Economic Forum, AI will be on the board. So we will have this Alexa, Siri, Watson, Project Debater on steroids now starting to help us make and augment our decision making. So this is a huge, huge breakthrough in AI technology. As I said, it's intuitive AI in real time, and it can sort out all of the unbiased elements and start to formulate an opinion without actually having to gain any benefit, like our politicians, of course. So, in conclusion, we've got great strides in technology. We've got some scary technologies that are going to blow your mind. I get to talk about these all the time, and it really is sort of scary. But what we've actually got to think about, and I finish this with all my presentations, is that we need to think about the ethical, moral, and societal implications of what we're doing. What are we prepared to give up in return for something of value, right? The augmentation again. So we need to think, and by the way, these are the challenges that the Dubai government have got, and the Minister for AI is actually dealing with now. Structured data and AI combined intuitively throughout the culture of the organization. So we need to make sure that AI is augmenting us as humans, not the other way around. It is essential. Otherwise, we're going to get to this scary world. Will man and machine come together? Will we be connected with the technology through our bodies? 100%. We will get there. We may not like it, and it's not our generation, it may be another generation beyond, but will happen. But more worryingly, we will be connected with this technology and will become reliant on its outcomes. So we've got to start to think about the moral, ethical, and societal implications. We have to make sure that whoever designs these things has accountability, responsibility, and ownership for it. Right? We must make sure that we embed that into the culture again. And we must do it without bias. Right? The reason, as I said, projects are failing is because of synthetic data being loaded onto projects to try and get ahead, and they're failing because of bias. It is a very, very important point when it comes to that. It's a thing called the trust economy that is going to be built out of this. So, my apologies for the technology. I don't know why it didn't transfer, but anyway. Any questions? We are currently in a process of loading hundreds of millions of these documents into this corpus ingestion. Right? And as a result, if it needs to have a legal argument, it can actually look at case studies, win-losses, precedents that were set during those cases. And therefore it can argue with a lawyer based on the information it's going and getting. But it's got to validate all this. Yes, it is, of course. And that's why we put so much emphasis into the unbiased data, right? So we cannot formulate an opinion based on what we want to put in and what we don't want to put in. Again, Project Debator is just having a point of view. No different to how a human would have a point of view based on the information. But if you say you take a doctor, for instance, and you're starting to think about the ingestion that a doctor has, and you start to think about AI for segmenting a patient record, taking the name and address and the person out of it, and being able to diagnose and understand the problems, you start to think about how this can be used. There's so many use cases that we can use it to formulate an opinion based on information, which, by the way, we spend our whole lives learning about and keep revalidating. And we never even touch a little tiny fragment of that. So that's why I say something in this vein is where it augments our decision-making process, right? It may not make the final decision, right? So if you say Project Debator was on the board, and it looked at all the financial data, because what you can do within an organization, you can load all of your past unstructured and structured data in, right? So it's searching on your pieces of information. And let's say it turned around and said, you're not efficient, you need to fire 10,000 people. And the CEO went, whoa. There's other implications to consider. So I'm not going to rely on AI to just go, you're going to make a decision and I'm going to act on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use it like any other tool, like a spreadsheet or our history or our HR plan or where we're going in terms of future investment, and I'm going to formulate, I'm going to use it as a tool to enhance my decision-making, not to replace my decision-making. And that's why I said it's very, very important that AI helps us, right? And we use the tool rather than replacing us. Very, very important. Any other questions? Correct. No, not replacing. It will be on the board. So if you imagine your Siri, Alexa, and all that at the moment that's not true AI, right? That's just voice recognition and actually searching and bringing something back for you. Well, you've got to take this to another stage where it's actually got to add a significant amount of value. So if a CEO turns around and says to the CFO, what's this number? Could you ask something like Project Debator? Yes. Should we, here's all the information on this investment. Should we invest? Does it make sense? Does it fit within our financial structure? So suddenly you get to this point where AI will be on the board and it will be starting to help shape the decision making and help augment us, right? And if you think about self-driving cars, when you saw the crowd debater side, when we start to think about self-driving cars, we have got a huge problem because this is happening, right? Tesla, Musk is saying tomorrow, he said we're going to have 20 million cars on the road. They're all going to be driving self-driving. Now, we know that there's self-driving cars on the road testing. What it's about collecting data. It's about the autonomous vehicle interacting with us. We've just done a massive study on it and actually saying it's about the experience. There's going to be a tipping point. There's going to be a tipping point in terms of whether we go an electric or we go self-driving. And he's been very smart with that. So should we go that way? You've seen a very, very tiny example of polling one city in Italy to say, are they for or against it? Now, of course, what we've done with that one, we presented those facts back to the government, and they've gone, that's interesting. What we'd like to do is go a little bit deeper now, and we'd like to have a wider poll. Now let's do it right across Italy. Now, should we change our policies? Should we actually invest? Should we be making those self-driving cars in our country? So it starts to change economies. So this is a very, very important stage of development where suddenly AI becomes real. And that's why I wanted to show you.
Just another question. Do you think that it's actually dangerous where companies actually put in information without actually being controlled and monitored by a third government body? Because that could create a bias.
Absolutely. And this is why data, this is the paper I'm writing at the moment about data undermining democracy, right? We have to put the rules in for collecting, storing, and using that data in an unbiased way, right? 100%. There needs legislation in countries. There needs to be accountability, ownership, and responsibility for these things. We can't just willy-nilly go into AI projects and go, boom, that solves all our problems, because we're going to have anarchy. So 100%, we have to have the governance and the provenance. IBM have just completed a study, actually, which is part of my day job, where we do a C-suite study every 2 years, and the study was proving or disproving the hypotheses that companies knew where their data is and what to do with it, and could they monetize the value. Shocking results. 13,000 CXOs we interviewed face-to-face. And when you start to think about I can't share the actual numbers with you because we're still shaping the story, but the implications of that has massive ramifications on AI. So we have to get our data sorted properly. We have to think about convergence of this technology. Going back to my self-driving car moment, so self-driving cars are going to rely on 5G, edge computing, IoT, or Internet of Everything, on the edge, the software, the security embedded into it, so it can take it in real time. It can't just stick it all on the cloud and expect to download it. So now we've got data starting to flow. Who owns that? Is it us? Is it RTA? Is it somebody else? So we've got a huge thing. And what I've been saying to most organizations is, you must have somebody in your organization that fully understands the data and is accountable for it, for everything you do. Otherwise, it's going to fail. Okay, I've overrun. I apologize about the technology. I do apologize. If you want to connect with me, I've got loads and loads of stuff to share. But thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.